Uwaga! Materiał, którego właśnie słuchasz, ma charakter wyłącznie rozrywkowy i informacyjny. Nie stanowi porady medycznej, ani nie zachęca do stosowania jakichkolwiek substancji. Wszystkie działania podejmujesz na własną odpowiedzialność, a autorzy podcastu nie ponoszą odpowiedzialności za skutki wykorzystania tych treści w praktyce. Jeśli temat jest dla Ciebie rażący, śmiało wyłącz, ale subskrypcję możesz zostawić. Hello everyone and welcome in another English One podcast. Today's guest is Jason Theobald. Hello, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm very well. As I said before, I hit the start button. I hope that I have not butchered your name, just because I think I'm saying it correctly, but I am not sure.
So your pronunciation is the way it was generally. It's a German name, so the way you said it was actually proper. In the States, we say Theobald, but you actually said it the way my ancestors would have said it.
Probably because the Polish is a little
Correct.
bit closer to the
I would
Germany,
think so.
so
Yep.
so it's even better. Even though I've watched the podcast 5 minutes ago just to be certain that I'm gonna pronounce it well. Today we have, like always, with my formula of the podcast, um, we're gonna talk about the building the perfect competitors. But first I'm gonna make us some sort of scenario just to, we have something to talk about. So let's say that I am your new client
Okay.
and I'm just finished my contest prep. I'll do, let's say, uh, a health phase or anything or whatever you like. My blood markers are perfect. Everything is fine. I'm totally healthy. You're not have anything to be concerned about. And I'm currently weighing about 102 kilos. So I am right in the top of the
25.
heavyweight class.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
About
we
220.
wanted to make me super heavy, like an open competitor.
Yeah.
So we have to jump over the weight class, says. So how do you manage everything, knowing that I'm lean? I am probably can't train at this point, even though that's not often the time so obvious. My diet is some sort of structure because you have to be if you are waiting like this. I'm 5'7", I think 170 centimeters in Polish
Okay.
measurements. So it's 5'7", I think, or 5'6", something like that. 5'7", I think. And yeah, that's basically it. You have me and what you like to assess first and what you like to start with.
Yep. So, I love that you said, the labs are good because I do have to say, because I start there. Like with every competitor that comes in, I'm going to take a look and make sure everything's optimized. So I assume insulin sensitivity is great, your insulin's in a great range. All that's important to me because you're not going to grow lean if any of that has issues. So just wanted to point that out. So, at that point, it's a new competitor. I'm gonna kind of get a baseline for where are their calories at, where are things at, especially if I haven't worked with you. I'm gonna wonder where are we at feeding and how are we gonna add this 15 pounds of muscle. So I will want to get a baseline of your caloric intake because it's all going to matter from training, caloric intake to the drugs that we use and how do we keep you healthy. So first and foremost, I'm going to want to know where your calories are. And you already said you were in a lean state. So we should be able to push up pretty nicely from there. So if we need to add 15 pounds, I'm going to at least make probably a bump in probably 500 calories. I don't go too heavy right away. Truly speaking, you only usually need about 250 in a surplus to gain muscle, but this is going to be a big jump because we're saying we want to be super heavy. And so that would be 15 American pounds to be, not just getting in, but actually a nice super heavyweight. So I'm going to start with a 500 calorie bump, knowing that that's going to have to go higher as we get more and more efficient as the PEDS come in. Okay. Um, I am going to lay the groundwork for certain health subs so we stay healthy. And we'll talk about peptides too, but just the offhand supplements that I usually recommend. I'm going to have a multivitamin. I'm going to have your creatines. Then I'm going to have something for kidneys, usually astragalus, something along those lines. Blood pressure, whether we use telmisartan or something over the counter, but oh gosh, what's the over counter one? I'm blanking on it. It'll come back to me. But I'll keep moving. So we're going to cover that. Let's just say we use telmisartan. Um, and usually something for cholesterol too, maybe some citrus bergamot, some niacin, something along those lines to keep all those. Because these are still going to get pushed on even if they're in a good range now. So we're setting the floor to get everything where we need it. So nice cow bump could protect all the organs, vital organs. And then we're going to get into what's your training like. So I'm a big believer that, you don't have to be in there 5, 6, 7 days a week. I like a 4 day per week, really applying effort. But I'm going to find out what's worked well for you. Because obviously, if you're already 225 5'7", you have an idea of your base. So are you someone who likes more of a, hit type like a Dante Trudel? Are you someone that does a little bit more volume? And I might start there, but I also might change it up on you. And after I get a baseline for what's going on with you, and maybe if you are used to higher volume, we're going to have periods of time where we're going to do lower volume so that we're not over burning the physique out. So that's going to depend, and that's very important on what we're doing with training wise. And we can have a deeper conversation. I'm just kind of laying the groundwork. And then PEDS wise, I might differ some.
Okay, let's put it into the categories, okay? Because I'm gonna ask you about the diet, about the supplements, about the PED use and stuff like that. So the training is like the main pillar of any sport, to be honest. So let's start there. Let's says that currently I'm training 5 times a week. I'm doing a push-pull leg split, and it is not low volume to the point of the Dante, for example. But let's says it's like a 2 to maximum 3 sets per body part, maximum 2 to 3 exercises. So it's like probably gonna be 6 to 8 sets per larger muscle group, like chest, back,
Yeah.
something like that. And for the it's a smaller, even though it's not smaller on paper, muscle groups like for example, delts or triceps, biceps. It's something around 4 to 6. Um, Sets per training session. So it says it's 16 to 20 sets per muscle on like a regular basics throughout the whole week, and it's pushing close to or to the failure.
Okay.
Sometimes beyond failure if needed, doing like a rest pause, drop sets, my reps, stuff like that, because I do like to incorporate that. So let's start there. And where would you put me?
Yep. So I'm going to assess the physique and find out where your weak parts are too. So that's hugely important for me. So, maybe I don't know if we need lats. Do we need more delts? Do we need more width to counter, a midsection? I don't know what we need to improve, but that's going to come into big time here because if the bodybuilder's already 225, they spent time. So this is where you can basically really hone in on weak parts. If someone's getting started in the sport, I train the whole physique and we see what happens. Like there's going to be body parts that take off and some that don't. But someone who's already down the line, I'm going to really assess where the weak areas are. So let's just in general, if someone's got a weak area, that's going to get at least trained twice a week. And I might even do feeder sets. Let's say your back's weak. And what I mean by a feeder set is I might have you start every time you're in the gym with 50 pull-ups to warm up. And, I'll say, I don't care how many sets it takes, but they have to be full range of motion. And if you need a band at first to get some of it towards the end, great. Go ahead and do that. If your chest is weak, I might have you doing push-ups in between sets to push in the volume. But as far as like the training setup, if you were doing five, I'll be honest with you, I probably would pull you back to four right now. We're trying to make a big jump. You grow outside of the gym. So I'm going to get you probably doing four, at least this first time. We haven't worked together. See how your body responds as we push PEDS up, do some of the things I like to do with PEDS, but really hone in on where your weak areas are so that we're growing that as well as we slap on another 15 pounds. As far as volume, I kind of generally land about what you set up. So I'm not going to be changing volume a ton. But like I said, I will have feeder sets for, I just call them feeder sets. You can call them whatever you want, but it's to feed blood into the muscle. So if you've got calves, for instance, my calves were never great. Every time I'm in the gym, in between sets, I'm doing calf raises, just body weight, just to push in volume. And it worked great to now they have a very nice heads on them and look great. Some guys have weak chests, so I might be having them do like incline type push-ups in between, even if it's back day. If it's back, I usually warm up with pull-ups, and they have to do pull-ups every time they're in the gym. But as far as volume, I'd probably keep you about the same. I like where you're at. As far as my setup, generally speaking, I'll have 3 to 4 sets. Usually there's like a first set where you're gonna bias the muscle. I want you to really make sure that what you're doing in your setup, you're feeling the muscle work. This is bodybuilding, not powerlifting. So I don't care as much what your weight is there. I want you to make sure you're biasing the muscle. If it's chest, I don't want it to be all your delts. I don't want it to be all your triceps. I want you to really be feeling the chest. So we're gonna bias, and then the two middle sets. There might only be one or there might be two. And those are usually an RPE of 9, meaning, you pull back only 1 rep from failure. And then that last set, we're going to go all out and hit failure. Now, as we get into the program, PEDs go up, food goes up. I might start adding in intensifiers where I say, okay, we hit that RPE of 10. Now I want you to do two rest pauses from the old Dante Trutel. So, you come to failure. You rest 5 deep breaths, oxygenate the body, go to failure again, oxygenate the body with 5, and then go to failure again. But generally speaking, I don't put that in right away because I don't know your body. I feel like taking that final set to that RP of 10, which is full range of motion failure for me, will elicit response. And as PEDs ramp and food ramps, then I can add in training techniques. We also have to manage fatigue and make sure that you're recovering well, sleep is good, digestion's good. I'm a big proponent of all those biomarkers being reported to me every week because as those start to fade, we know that we have to pull back. And we have to go into maybe a week of pullback or change up what we're doing in total. But that's a general feel where I'd go with the training for now.
Okay, one question I would like to incorporate, especially in your case, just because I think that this is something that's going to be probably different than the other coaches I normally speak with. So, do you like to do some sort of I would say like a periodization in training, like periods of maybe some sort of like undulating periodization, for example, like you do in like periods when you raising up the frequency or just volume, and then doing something like times when you intensify the sets. So, for example, doing more focusing more on getting stronger, stuff like that. I don't know how to translate it
Yeah.
into
Yep.
English, but you get what I mean. Yeah, like
Yeah.
for example, like 4 to 6 weeks of getting higher in the volume, then doing something like base volume, but going higher with a weight, so you create more volume, but not by adding a set or reps, but adding, for example, a weight or something like that. Or do you like to keep it stable, but just the progressive overload itself is gonna do the trick?
So the answer is it depends. I have programs where I know the body very well, and what we'll do is as we start to kick the pads in and the food, we'll have like a 4 to 6 weeks where we build strength, and so everything is based on hitting PRs because the body just came off of a rest and health phase, and it's very healthy, and so I want PRs to be hit. I want to build strength base, but I've noticed that those people kind of trail off and they are prone to injury or they get beat down that last 4 to 8 weeks, whatever's left on that cycle, then we switch to higher volume. I might push the reps up a little bit more, keep the strength that we have, but try to volumize more from a standpoint of more volume and pushing blood in rather than chase, 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 because some bodies just can't chase, chase, chase that whole time. Some can. Some are very mesomorphic mixed with a little endomorph, and you can pound on those bodies. Some are more like me. I'm more ectomorph when I first got into it. And so usually after about 8 weeks of chasing PRs, my body's like, hey man, we either now got to pull back or let's switch to more volume. So I'm very open to what I'm seeing based on the person. You look very mesomorphic, but you could have been a skinny mini like me. I don't know. So my instinct to me would say to let you chase PRs most of the time, but it would be based on our feedback.
Yeah, to be honest, I probably could, but my shoulders and overall health at this point is not the best. So I am definitely going more into
Yep.
more like a time under tension stuff training, and this is something that's definitely do the trick for me. But I get what you mean, and I wanted to ask about the differences between the guys who are older and the guys who are
Yeah.
younger. But you basically described it very well. That you're gonna differentiate by the actually the probably health of the person, because there are
Yeah.
guys who have 25 years and shit ton of injuries, and guys who are 40, 50 even, who
Yeah.
can easily push the weights still and be great with that, to be
The
honest.
generally older a guy is, the more I like to incorporate tempo training. So I'm going to slow down the rep a lot so they can't hold as much, they can't, use as much weight. But because of that time under tension and slowing down that rep, it's going to feel just as heavy. So the older a guy is, and the more I know, if someone has shoulder issues, they're not going to be able to push 100-pound dumbbells probably anymore, but we can make 50 feel really heavy if they have to raise it, at a count of four, hold, and then lock in. So that tempo work comes down to it more as a guy gets older. And I'm 47, so I'm there. I do a lot of tempo work that's more high volume with me. And I can chase PRs early in, but then usually about 7 weeks, I have to back off, or else I'm going to notice my shoulders start to get achy and my knees and things like that. So I like to remain open, but I have a framework and I've kind of tried to lay it out. A lot of things going to be based on feedback with a guy for sure, or gal for sure.
Great, great. That's what I thought, but I am glad that you explained it very well, just because there are some guys who are still struggling to do anything, but they think that the only way is to push the weights, and
No,
this is like basically standing in place because they are training for 2 weeks and then 6 weeks they can handle anything. So yeah,
I will say this for me personally, when my physique took leaps and bounds improvement and I was placing well in Classic Physique Pro, I wasn't chasing PRs as much anymore. I was chasing, how do I make this exercise harder without always worrying about the weight going up? So maybe, I was looking at how do I disadvantage myself to make weight feel heavy? So maybe it's moving yourself in a seat different. Maybe it's how you grip something to make it harder instead of easier. Those were the things that I started doing. And then I could feel the muscle work. So I feel like when you take that leap from intermediate to advanced, you learn how to make lightweight feel hard and you can feel the muscle work from set rep one. The less advanced need 7, 8, 9 reps to really feel it. I can feel it from rep one. And that's what I try to get across to my guys and gals as much as I can, whether they're going to send me pictures of them training, different things like that. But it's that mind that once you get to that point, that's what really makes you advanced, in my opinion.
let's be honest with me. If that was something that's at the beginning at least give you some sort of anxiety, just because I am the guy who right now I am trying to turn into the way of being more focused on the muscle, on the tempo and stuff like that. But I'm not gonna lie, this is something that makes me something sometimes anxious, just because if you train hard for a for your whole like a lifting career, let's say like that, it is something that makes you that defines you. And then
Mhm.
if you do something different, you I I sometimes feel like pussy, just because I don't
Mhm.
know if it's something that's
Yep.
seriously helping me, or maybe it's just a little bit easier in a way that it's not so demanding on your even mental, like it's not that mental like tasking for you, just because there was a days and I was anxious about knowing that tomorrow is the leg day. And I have a logbook in front of me, and I know that I am gonna do something that I never done before. And the last training session was a hell of a murder. It was like a death crime, it was hardcore, and this is something that's leave me with a feel that I'm not entirely sure if I'm doing something right
Mhm.
or it's just a little bit easier.
Well, my counter to that would be this. It's not easier, and it can be just as intense, if not more intense.
Oh, it is definitely.
Know what
But
I
if you
mean?
see that you have like a four plates here, and now you have just two, you're thinking, oh my God, it's twice much easier.
Not if you slow it down though and work on that tempo, right? And, listen, so when I would go heavier, maybe I'm doing this, but when it's light, I'm fighting it. My pecs are flexed the whole
Yeah,
time. I'm now moving it only with my pec instead of everything. That's more intense. I'm actually more out of breath doing that. My body as a whole is actually more taxed. Uh, and so to me, I was nervous at first, but when I saw the results, it didn't take long to see the density that came to my physique and how much I was staying leaner. And so I knew actually I was working harder, even though the pounds weren't what I once could do. I
right.
mean? I'm not getting under a 500-pound squat anymore. I'm just not doing it. My knees are achy. I'm 47. My back hurts. But I can sure as shit slow down 275, 315 and go in the hole 4 seconds, pause down there, maybe do one and a half where you do a whole rep, then a half, and that's one. And all that is ways to make that weight feel heavy as hell. And when you walk out of there, your legs are big and veiny and full of blood. And that's a way that you can grow. Now, maybe once a month you can challenge it and put a little bit more weight on. But yes, at 47, I don't know how old you are, David, but you're not going to be able to. You just keep doing that every week.
Yeah, that was a strictly selfish question, to be honest, just because I know that it's I know what's gonna be the answer, but I wanted to hear that out
Yep,
loud.
yep,
So
yep.
yeah, sorry for that, guys, but I have to ask. I have to ask. Now I'm gonna sleep a little bit easier. Okay, so we got my training set up. So let's go into off-season diet, and this
Yep.
is something that you partially answer, but knowing that I have to push quite a bit of weight, to be honest, to get next time on a stage, for example, probably next year, with at least 20, or maybe not 20, but 10, 15 pounds heavier at least,
Yep.
even though it's probably not enough. But let's say 10 to 15 to be some sort of in a range that is humanly possible if you are if your surname is not Walker. So what about the diet? Do you like to have your guys pretty lean throughout the whole off season, or do you like to do something like more maybe like a full-blown mass mode, like a dirty bulk or something like that?
I like guys to stay leaner. This day and age with the conditioning standards, if you want to try to go pro, you can't slap on tons of body fat on your back and your glutes and think they're going to be dry and peeled. It's not going to happen. So you have to strategically figure out how do you overfeed, but also keep them lean. And we have so many cool modalities now, and we'll talk about them. There's so many ways to do it that number one, I still am going to get you very high fed, but I am going to keep you lean as well. Now, if you can't follow a diet and you're going out and eating pizza twice a week and cupcakes every night, well, I can't help that. But I can certainly overfeed you and push you, and you'll stay lean based on our setup for sure. Especially if you had a good, you come off a prep right and you don't, feeding like a donkey, you should be fine to then hit that off season and stay pretty darn lean. So I like my guys to stay pretty lean. There's a lot of things to cover with diet. Some guys have great digestive systems, right? And they can just eat, eat, eat. Other guys like myself, we're not born to eat. You got to figure out, are you going to have to use a lot more things like honey and fast acting carbs and maybe even some juices, like because they just can't put the volume in. Do you have to support their digestive system with, apple cider vinegars and, hydrochloric, betaine hydrochloric and pancreatic enzymes? And do you have to get their bile cranking with bitters and phosphatidylcholine? All these things will go into making them an eating machine. And so that's what I have to make you as an eating machine. And then we got to talk about how many times a day do we feed? I find some guys, if you feed them too often, 7 times a day, their metabolism is almost cranking too much and you can never keep up. I really find a sweet spot around 4 to 5 bigger meals a day. And that seems to work for the building phase better in my experience than smaller, more frequent meals every, where it's 7, 8 meals because they're eating so much and they want them tinier. That almost seems to speed up the metabolism. I feel like bigger meals work better. So I like 4 to 5. I'm big on para, intra, and post nutrition because this is where we're going to use our PEDS to really advantage us and over any natural trainer could ever do to hyper compensate the muscle as we're training. So I definitely got to have protein, carbs. Usually use MCT pre because MCT, I like to get some fat in, but I don't want a fat that's going to store with insulin use, and MCT burns more like a carb. So I'm going to use a little bit of MCT to fill out those intracellular triglycerides, but mainly carbs. And it's going to be faster acting, maybe some white rice, some jasmine, but it's going to be a good amount of food. Maybe you need some honey because you can't have your stomach full. Maybe you do well with some juice. We're going to use some intra carbs. I like anything from Gatorade to cyclic dextrins, whatever works with the guy. Like my body does better with the dextrose. Some guys do really well with the cyclic dextrins. Some guys like me kind of feel heavy and it, no matter how much you do with it, it just doesn't feel amazing to me. But I want some sort of intra. Usually load it with your essential amino acids, some creatine. You got your fast acting carbs. And maybe some citrulline to push fullness. And then post, we're going to definitely get, protein, carbs, fat. So those 2 meals are going to be my biggest bolus meals of the day, your pre and your post. Now, how far away from the pre do you need to be? You and I are going to figure that out. Is it 2 hours? Is it an hour and a half? I usually can eat about an hour and go and be fine. Not everyone can do that. So that's going to be important on timing, but I want those to be some of our biggest feed of the day. Post obviously then becomes the next, and you got your intracarb. Then we're going to fill in around those areas with your nutrition. And like I said before, I probably will start with just a 500 caloric intake because we got PEDS coming in. We've got, as long as that's a surplus, let's let that run. And then we start bumping as we need to go. I don't chase the scale generally speaking, but I need to see that you're recovering. I need to see that if it is PR training, that we are hitting those. And I need to see that sleep's going well and all those things. Or if some of those things are faltering, we probably need more food. We are not giving you enough to do what you need to do. So I'll stop there. If you've got things to interject, I'll let you, and then we'll go from there.
Definitely. First of all, for asking the next questions, I need to assess how do you count your macros? Because there's a guys who counting macros just from the direct sources. For example, they take meat as a protein,
Yep.
not count the fats and stuff like that. How do you count your macros?
So I prefer everything to be counted.
Great,
So literally, the quickest example I can give y'all is oats have fats, they have protein. It's a main carb, but it has both. I want all that tracked.
great, great. Okay. So knowing that, how much of protein per kilo or pounds do you like your guys have?
Perfect. Now, I will say this, it depends because some guys can really churn through some protein and some digestion gets bogged down. Here's the thing, guys. Just because there's a formula that says 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight, if they're bogged down and they're inflamed, guess what? They're not growing. So I can throw out a formula to you, but if you're constantly bloated and look like you're 12 months pregnant, you're not improving. So then it's either do I have to beef up digestion? Do I have to pull back? And we do this with more carbs. But the general is I like to start with 1.5 times your body weight because we want to move up. If I can get 2 grams in you, that's going to be ideal. But that's going to be 450 grams of protein. That's a lot. I probably wouldn't start there. especially if you come to me eating 285. I might bump you to, 330, maybe 50 grams and see how you do. But generally speaking, I would want to be at that 1.5 times your body weight. But are you digesting it? Are you assimilating it? And then if you aren't, what can I add to try to help that? Maybe you just need some apple cider vinegar, some aloe in the morning. Maybe that's not enough. Then I bring in betaine hydrochloric, 2 or 3 caps a meal. Maybe that's not enough. Then I bring in pancreatic enzymes. Okay, now we're cranking. Great. But that's generally speaking where I want the protein.
Okay, okay, got it. So, how much fat for your guys? Because there are coaches who actually do not like to use any of the additional fats, and there are guys who like to use a lot. So,
Yep.
where on the spectrum you are?
Yep. So, generally, I think that you need fat intake to grow your best. I always have, if I want to stay really lean, I just leave fat out and eat protein and carb. But that doesn't slab muscle on me. So you have to have some of that fat in. Plus, you're going to get better pumps. It's going to fill those intracellular triglycerides that we have within our muscles as well. So for a guy that's 225, I'm probably going to have him about 80 to 100 grams of fat at the height of our grow phase. I might start a little bit lower because I don't know your digestion yet, but I'm probably going to tip out there. But here's the thing. If I bump you and we get to 100 and you're still rolling and rocking and you're just churning through, I have no problem going higher. But I think we at least probably need to get to about, half of your body weight in fat to get there. Now, I do like a lot of MCT. And as we know, that burns faster. It doesn't hang around as much as a long chain fat. And so, you're still getting some of those great benefits, but it burns through faster. And that's why I like it. So I'm big on MCT, coconut oil. But I still do use, your whole eggs, love them, great for the body. And then, of course, some EVOO. I even use a little heavy whipping cream. You put it in the shakes and it's delicious. It's straight saturated fat. We can't forget saturated fat and how anabolic it is. We don't want to send, 100 grams of saturated fat. That's going to impact cholesterol in probably a negative way. But to get some in, I do usually include a little saturated fat from heavy whip in a shake at maybe once or twice a day, 10 to 15 grams. It makes it delicious. And like I said, that saturated is important as well.
Pure from the curiosity, why actually the saturated fat might be the anabolic? Because
I think
I
it
don't
might
get.
be, I think it's more along the lines because of how it improves, it brings up total cholesterol so well. And we know cholesterol is the building block of hormone. So
Yeah,
it's
but if we are injecting the hormones, actually we don't have we don't need to produce our own
you're
hormones. So
100% correct.
actually, yeah, so
But
actually
that's
probably it's
why
gonna
it's always touted as an anabolic is because it brings up
yeah.
cholesterol, which,
So
so
it's if I was natural, that would probably have a sense. But
yeah.
in the PED users, it's actually probably going to be counteractive because they are going to worsen my insulin sensitivity and probably bump it up the LDL
I
a
find it
lot.
helps. I find it actually helps in small doses actually to grow. So I still
Okay.
bring it in with the PD users for sure.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'll have
Great.
like 10 grams of fat in a shake. And so if you have a shake a day, it's only 10 extra grams of saturated fat, but I do bring that in. So I've got your
And
omega 3,
how
omega
much
6.
of the coconut oil you use?
So let's
Because
say that you're taking in 100 grams of fat, right? I would say 40 to 50, that's probably gonna be MCT, maybe 20 grams from coconut. You'll probably have 20 grams from EVOO. You're gonna get some from your chicken, a few from eggs, and that'd be about the mix, somewhere around there.
so actually, a lot of there is saturated fat because coconut oil is saturated fat.
It has
Uh,
some, yeah.
like it has some MCTs, but most of them is actually saturated, as well as the chicken and as well as the eggs.
Well, the
Uh,
coconut, I said about 20 grams. The MCT is what I go heaviest on. That's my
okay,
biggest.
separately, like adding the
Yeah, yeah,
separate.
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
okay. Okay. I
So
get
about
it. I
40
get
to
it.
50 grams generally be MCT. And then you get about 20 from coconut and then, go
Sure.
down the line.
Sorry that I asking so certain, but I wanted to just get you. But sometimes I think that I am. It sounds like I am. bugging you or something like that. Like I wanted to catch that you were wrong or something like that, but I don't. I don't. I totally know that you are actually an expert in what you do. This is why I ask, because
Yep.
there are a lot of things that sometimes might sound a little bit odd and sometimes even irrational, but in practice, it actually works. And this is why I sometimes ask, like maybe it's a weird question, but for me
Yep.
it's interesting actually because I know that you can put your guys in shape, and there's so many ways of doing that. That not doing saturated fat or doing it a lot is like totally different on a different like a range of the spectrum, but both works, and I want to know why.
Yep. Yep. And I'm not one of those guys that demonizes cholesterol anyways. I think the healthiest people are around 280 to 300 total.
Oh,
So, the research is going to bring that out. You're going to see that. Low cholesterol is not the healthy way to be. The
okay.
brain uses cholesterol, it needs it. And so, driving cholesterol down is not the healthiest people. 180 to 280 usually are your healthiest. And then under that, you usually see heart attack. And above that, you can see heart attack. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to our inflammation, right? Is the body inflamed? And
Yeah,
that's what makes you
definitely.
plaque your arteries. So I guess the best way to say it, I like a wide range of fat intake. So I'm not just slamming the body with all omega 3s. I like a wide range of different fats. And I think that's going to produce the best growth overall.
Great, great. So the carbs, this is
Yep.
the macronutrient that most of the people likes the most. So how about the carbs? Do you
That is
just,
true.
if you set up the carbs and fats, you fill it with the rest of the protein and fats, the rest is carbs, or
Yep.
do you have like a minimal amount that you like your guys to have?
So I don't have any formula for it. What I do is since because in our example, you're a guy who's already been at this for a while. So you're going to come to me and say, hey, Jay, I'm eating 300 protein, 400 carb, 60 fat, or whatever. Okay. And so I'm going to take that baseline, create that 500 caloric bump, and then just assess and then go from there. So, if I feel like your protein needs to get up to 330, your fasting needs to get up to 80, whatever's left in that 500, I'm going to bump your carb up. But generally speaking, once I get protein and fat set, I'm going to bump carbs mostly.
Statystyki podpowiadają mi, że duża część osób oglądających ten kanał wciąż go nie subskrybuje. Dlatego jeżeli należysz do tego grona, zasubskrybuj już teraz oraz wpadaj na naszego Discorda. Link znajdziesz w opisie tego filmu. Zapraszam Cię również do wspierania ruchu Zapierdalać Trzeba poprzez zakupywanie merchu oraz szerowanie, udostępnianie i lajkowanie. Wielkie dzięki i wracamy do materiału.
Great.
As we go into our gaining phases. So, I mean, at 225 and lean, that could get up to 800. I mean, I've had guys up to 1,000. And that's where it really becomes important when we talk about PEDs on certain modalities and things we use to keep blood sugars good, keep inflammation down, and all those things. So, I have no formula that says it caps out at this and it starts at this. If it's a guy like yourself who's already been in the game, I'm going to look at what you're doing and then build on to that rather than, take you from, let's say, 350 to 700 right away. I just don't think it's needed, especially if you're coming off of a health phase. I'm going to put a little bit of surplus and then assess. I mean, it's possible you check in a week and you're down 2 pounds too. And then it's like, okay, let's make a bigger bump, 100 carbs. But generally speaking, I go off what they're doing, create a little bit of a surplus, get the PEDS rocking, get everything going, and then we assess. That's what true coaching is. It's each week, how is the athlete doing and what's going on? I don't really stick to rules and formulas, but that's how I would get rolling here.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes totally sense. Okay, so what about like a calorie cycle or carb cycle
Yep.
throughout the week? Do you like to
Talk about it.
incorporate that? It is
So
mostly like training or non-training or mid, high, low.
I'm generally a training and non-training. I try to keep it simple. There are at times for if I have guys who are really endomorphic and they're going to slap on a lot of fat, obviously the carbs are going to be less, and I might do three low, one high or something like that. And I don't care if a high falls on an off day, and I don't care if a low falls on a training day. It's going to happen. I just let that roll and see how they're doing because I'm really trying to manage body fat with those guys. But generally speaking, I'm a training and non-training guy. And so my non-training, I'm sorry, usually I pull anywhere from 50 to 150 carbs. Fats may bump a bit, protein may even bump a bit, especially if I don't want too huge of a deficit, but I want to restore some insulin sensitivity. I might bring those other two up, but really bring carbs down more. You just don't know what's in the guy's history and what his
Yeah.
blood work looks like. So there's been some guys who have really bad histories of A1C. I might even go even lower on those off days, but I really bump the fat and the protein because we're still trying to gain, but I don't want to be bombarding the pancreas with a ton of carbs while they're resting. So I don't have a true formula, but someone who has no issue, I might pull 100, I might pull 60, something along those lines on the off day and see how that's rolling for us. The idea is we grow lean, right? So whatever accomplishes that, but I generally like training and non-training. And then usually I'll have a free meal per week where they can go and have whatever they want in place of a meal. And if they overdo it, then I say replace 2 meals. Um, but a bodybuilder should be able to go out to a dinner with his family during the week and it not be his free meal and pick a chicken breast, a broccoli and a potato or something. And I don't really consider that a free meal. I want some flexibility there while they're in the off season, just because this sport, it can really bog you down. And I think you should be able to do that and have that freedom, because when it comes time to prep, I'm not a big free meal guy. It's let's get on point. And I know we're going to talk about that maybe some other day, but
Yeah.
I do give some of those liberties. But you should check good meals, and then you get one meal a week where it's like, hey, you want some ice cream with it? You want a pizza? Go do what you want. Let's see how we're doing. But if you blow it out of the park with a large pizza and then you're looking fatter and you don't get it off, well, then that's not good either. So maybe sushi next time. So, but that's generally how I set up training and non-training.
Great, great. So, uh, you have a lot of experience in this sport. So, what, in your opinion, are the biggest mistake, like a diet mistake, that athletes most often do in the off season?
Biggest mistake. Well, I kind of just touched on one. I think a lot of guys think that their free meal is the Last Supper, and they overgorge themselves to the point where maybe digestion's off for the next 1 to 2 days, and now they can't get the food in that we need to get in. So then what you see in the report is, I just couldn't eat for a day or two, and I'm like, you don't realize how much that's holding us back, especially if you're an ectomorph. If I'm in the middle of my off season and I don't eat for a day or two, I'm missing calories, my weight's going to be down 2 or 3 pounds. And when we're trying to stack bricks, that's taking bricks. And so I think that's one of the biggest ones. I did that early in my career. I mean, I've been bodybuilding for a long time. I don't know, since I guess my first show was 22. And I kind of traded use my cheat meal that way. It was the Last Supper, and but now like I might just go to sushi, and I'm pretty content. And so, but that allows me to then get right back to my plan the next day. I got a little bit of extra calories in me. I'm happy, and I move on the line. And then I think another big issue is just not planning well. I see a lot of my guys. They'll check in. It was like, well, it was a tough week of travel, and I just didn't hit my macros. And it's like, okay, well you've chose to be a bodybuilder. If you want to be the best bodybuilder, you've got to figure out ways to get it in. And there's ways when you're on the road, even if you don't, you can always buy tuna packets. You can always slam a bunch of fruit, which is a big favorite of mine anyways. You can bring a ton of almonds. You should be able to at least get it in and be close. So that is another one, not planning. But I think the free meal, not planning. Because at the end of the day, if you're not getting the food in and you're really serious about this, especially this example of adding 15 pounds of true muscle, you got to be on point and you can't be missing it.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, the next question was cheat meals, but you already covered that, so I'm not going to ask about that.
I will say one
So,
more thing about cheat meals, David.
okay,
If someone is struggling to gain and grow and we're staying lean, I've had guys that get 3 cheat meals a week. So I will use it as calorie infusion rather than saying, let's say we're already at 750 carbs, protein's maxed, fat's pretty much maxed. They're reporting their hunger as a 1 or 2. I'll use free meals because they're more palatable and it's able to get food in rather than just continue saying eat more chicken, eat more oats, eat more rice, because they're kind of like, dude, I'm at my wit's end. And I have some guys that are sometimes that tough with gaining. So as long as they're staying lean, I will use free meals then in that case throughout the week to push that caloric surplus. But that's usually, if you have three in, you're pretty much maxed with the good food that we can get in, and so then I try that route. So, but
Do
otherwise,
you
it's
see? Do you see that with those kind of guys, they actually, even though they might not gaining the weight uh, in a pace that maybe those guys who are not cheating, but they getting like in a worse shape. Like they're getting softer, even though they are not gaining as much of the weight. Because there are studies out there that shown that even a single meal of overeat could worsen your insulin sensitivity for the two I can't pronounce that
consecutive days.
that's
I think you're
yeah,
saying.
consider the days.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that I think that might have impact, especially if someone has three of that.
Mhm.
Basically, the insulin sensitivity might be worse throughout the whole week. So that
Yep.
sometimes shift um, um, the composition of your body. I don't know how to say pronounce that word. That macronutrients are not participate that well,
Yeah,
like
partitioning.
like
Yeah,
that.
so
Yeah,
I
partition.
only
Yeah,
do
just
this. I only do it if one isn't working, two isn't working, and like I said, they're maxed. And so I'll have guys who are that insulin sensitive because of everything, the PEDS, everything they're on,
yeah.
that they're churning through it so much that it's not affecting it. If it starts affecting it, you're going to see body fat come on. And I'm watching pics very closely. So I'll see it and know that that's not the way to go for sure. But you're correct. Like, that's why I don't just chase the scale. But if someone's staying really lean and we're now at two and it's still not working and they just like, I can't get more food in, I have used GHRP6. I don't know if you ever played with that peptide. It
Yeah, of
helps people
course.
eat. And, it's old school, but, it makes you a bottomless pit. So, I've played with those things too, but a lot of times I'll just try putting in another free meal. And, one of them might be kind of like a quote unquote dirty. We can, debate whether there's dirty and clean food, but you know what I mean, like a pizza. And then the
Yeah.
other one might be, well, go get a burrito. I mean, it's just a shell, chicken, rice, beans, but present it in a different way. So I'm not slamming horrible food every time. It's just something that's a little more palatable than your at home chicken rice and and things like that. So, but you are 100% correct, and that has to be managed and watched by the coach for sure.
Yeah, definitely. This is why I asked, just because I wanted to know if you notice that, because I do. I do. Sometimes the weight is not increasing at all, but the visuals are getting
Yep.
like blurred. It's crazy how it works, but sometimes people just don't get it. That works like that. That might obviously be because of the sodium intake increase and stuff like that, or overall like RRR system up or down regulates because of the influence of the sodium and stuff like that. But mostly the those shifts in sodium are going to be shown in the scale, so that's indicate as well. So yeah, this is what I asked, because you have a far more experience than me, and this is something that's interesting me, because those studies are there, but you know how it works with the bodybuilders who are using 10, 15, 20, 28 IUs of insulin, of GH, is insulin, the basal, the short-acting insulin, probably some metformin or berberine and stuff like that. We have a lot of things
Tons of
that
things. Yep.
changes our like
Physiology and brain.
metabolism. So
Yep.
yeah, so this is something that not the studies are not always directly for us. Let's
Right.
say like that.
That's 100% correct.
So how about the mini cuts? Because there are right now maybe less, but a couple years ago, the mini cuts are the sheets. Everyone uses it like it is something that's totally staple in the off season. So there are coaches who are not doing it at all. So for example, 20, 30 weeks of increasing the calories, or just keeping the
Yep.
surplus constant. And there are guys who like to push it for a bit, then do some sort of mini cuts, like pull back, push
Yeah.
again, pull back. How's your approach?
So I don't schedule these because I don't know if you're going to lose insulin sensitivity. I have you checking in with me and tracking your blood glucose. So, I'll ask you to give me your morning. Okay, morning. But morning's not really that important. I mean, it's okay, fasted, but what I want to see is your postprandials, 2.5, 3 hours. How are you processing food still? David, is what I want to see. And so if your blood sugars are coming back, maybe you wake up in the morning, you're 90, little bit of dawn phenomenon, but after you eat your meals, you're at 85 all day. Well, that's beautiful. Maybe you're at 82. So that's most important to me, and that tells me I can keep going. But let's say you get to 100 now postprandial. Now you're at 102. Now the next week you're 105. You're losing insulin sensitivity. So now I'm going to mini cut. That's it. If you have insulin sensitivity good, you're sleeping good, your digestion good, you're pooping right, you're thinking right, I don't need to pull back on the food right away because you're insulin sensitive. And we're using, I'm going to be using retatrutide and different things, and we can talk about that if guys want to
Of
use it.
course.
And so I can extend this for as long as I want. I think coaches who live by rules haven't been doing this long enough. The answer is it depends. I have a guy who's natural. He can get his carbs up to 750 in the off season. He's a natural IFBB pro, and his blood sugars are 75 every freaking week. Do we mini cut? No, I don't need to. That's to reset sensitivity. His digestion's great. So, if he says, Jay, I'm just kind of sick of eating, then I do it for mental. But generally speaking, a mini cut is usually because body fat's accumulated. And then what is the root cause of that? Well, they've lost insulin sensitivity from pushing all that food. So my answer is it depends. I'm watching the postprandial blood sugar to tell me what I need to do. And so, I do that with off season too, when or after the push. Like, so a guy gets to the end of his push, and we're going into his health phase. Well, what are your blood sugars? Well, my blood sugar's still 85. Okay, great. I don't have to pull your carbs down so much during this health phase. Well, no, Jay, they're 120. Oh shit, we got to really reset and get you healthy here. Like, that's not good. So now we got to use the health phase to pull back. But if I can keep calories higher going into the health phase, I'm going to do it. So if you're not watching your glucometer, you're not taking all this data in, and you're just saying, well, it's time to cut and pull my calories back. Now I'm in a health phase, and you don't really know if your insulin's great. Why? Why pull the calories down? Why pull the carbs down? So I'm using more data to guide me. But if they need a break, sure. I mean, everyone gets sick of just pounding food, but if it's going through him, the guy who eats 750, he's just what he needs. It's normal. He doesn't even like complain about it. So everyone's different, but that's how I guide it. I don't just say, yep, we're going to mini cut after 10 weeks. It's how you looking and how's your blood sugars and all those things.
Yeah. Do you like measure it through the NYC, home IR and CRP, or just like doing for every 4 6 weeks, or just checking the blood sugar throughout the day? Just because, like you said, the Down phenomenon syndrome is something that guys are even don't know about that,
Mhm.
or just simply just forgetting, because sometimes we are know that something is out there but we forget about it, and some guys are actually doing a lot of GH at night, and then they wake up, the sugar is fine, so it's everything is great, but it's not an indicator that everything is fine. If you're for example, NYC is 5.4, 5.6, like, and even higher, yeah, or your CRP levels are through the roof. So, do you like to check it out?
Yeah, so I'm usually getting labs at the end of each push phase, usually. I always get A1C and I always get CRP. That's just part of my lab work.
Yeah.
I own a hormone replacement therapy clinic called Advanced Vitality. I have 9 NPs on staff, a doctor. So all my clients can get cheap labs and easy access to anything we need. And so that's just on my standard panel. But here's the thing: if you're fasted, I'm sorry, if your postprandials are 85, the likelihood of your A1C being bad is very minimal. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But I check fasted insulin too because fasted insulin tells a tale.
Yeah.
In other words, you could have an A1C of 5.2, which is a great A1C, but your fasted insulin's
Yeah.
18. So what's going on there? Well, you're fading, but your body is over cranking insulin to keep the blood sugars inside the cell. At some point, that pancreas will get tired. So I check fasted insulin, A1C, and blood glucose. But what I can do on a weekly basis is at least get your postprandials, and that's going to give me a damn good
Mhm.
idea of how much further I can continue to push this phase, or do we need a mini cut?
Yeah, great, great. Okay, what about the cardio in the off season? Because there are guys who think that cardio just burns the calories, so it not make sense. There are coaches who believes in like a staple because of the heart health and the insulin sensitivity and your appetite increase actually, and um, your
I'm a big fan.
digestion and stuff like that. So
Yeah, I'm a big fan. You know, one of the things to be able to train intense is you have to have good cardiovascular health. So I've had guys come train with me and my pace, they can't keep up with my pace. And so they're out of breath like Jesus. They want to rest 5 minutes between sets. And it's because their cardiovascular is terrible. They're gasping for air and they're not healthy. And here's the thing, if that's the case, I would argue you're not growing optimally. So I like to hit 10,000 steps is what I start with. And then a few of my guys will get a little bit of hit work, and it's very minimal, like 5 hits, maybe twice a week. And it's done on the bike, and they'll crank out 20 seconds as hard as they can go, coast for 40. It literally takes you 5 minutes, but that's going to upregulate the metabolism, keep that A1C better, even better for your HRV, and it's going to allow you to train harder and be more, basically more intense in your training. So my argument is, yes, great for heart health, but it's also great for the intensity that you have to apply to build a champion physique. That's how I see it.
great, great. I'm glad that you say that aloud because this is something that always is neglectable for a lot of the coaches, and it is something that's for me. This is the biggest game changer in my entire bodybuilding, to be honest. I've always done a cardio, but 20 minutes, 25 minutes of cardio 6 times a week is not enough for my standards. At least 8 to 14,000 steps a day.
Yep.
And I recently, like 5 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that, incorporated the hits,
Mm.
and I see that my HR is definitely lowering, even though I am on clean and stuff like that because I'm cutting right now. So
Okay.
this is something that's showed a lot of improvement, especially that I need to use the CPAP to sleep. So it's actually I believe that maybe in the future, if I'm gonna do that, I might even don't have to use that CPAP someday. This is something that's a huge goal of mine. So I am a huge believer and a huge advocate of that. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice if you're not doing something for the heart. So like I said, I like a 10,000 basis and then a little bit of hit cardio. And like I said, 5 intervals can be extremely helpful and twice a week, and it's not going to tax your gains. And in fact, I find that the legs actually, as long as you don't do it on leg day, it's actually like a little mini workout. They get pumped. It's not too much where you're going to, cause any atrophy. In fact, it seems to help with fullness and building legs. So, just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I think that might even increase the myoglobin in your muscles. So probably it's gonna deliver a lot of an oxygen, and with the oxygen
Yep.
comes like nutrition. So this
Definition.
is something that's probably gonna help you a lot.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
100%. Yep.
definitely. Okay, so let's talk PEDs if you are not against that.
Not at
If we
all.
can. So what are the best compounds for building muscle in the off-season, in your opinion, or the most preferable, like a list of choice or something like that? You get
Yep.
me.
So I run the gamut on this. I kind of believe that um, most PEDs are going to deliver some muscle building. It comes down to your physiology and what's going on your labs. So, for instance, like a guy who's 40 might have high, hematocrits, red blood cell count. So I'm probably not going to push nandrolone, EQ on him, at least not hard. I mean, if he needs it for joint health or something, maybe some nandrolone. But a young guy who doesn't maybe have that many problems, I feel like you grow more intense from like an EQ, a DECA paired with like your testosterone than like say a Masteron, which is really like kind of big right now. So older guys, Masteron might be great. I think the younger guys are going to grow better with EQ and Nandrolone, with your testosterone, obviously at any base. Um, those are my generally go-tos. Now we can talk trend and when to use it and when not. Um, and then Primo, I like it. Again, if I have a young guy who has other issues, maybe, I have some people who can't take EQ because they feel more anxious. Well, I might try Primo. I feel like higher dose Primo, you're going to grow a little better than just the Masteron. I love Masteron actually for an older guy. But for a younger guy, if you can't do the EQ or the Nandrolone, I'm probably going to come in with Primo. Um, I'm a big fan of GH. I'm a big fan of proper use of Humalog. Um, I'm a big fan of retatrutide. Um, and so, all those things together, I'm a big fan of SS31 peptide. We can talk about why. So those are my general thoughts on it. You got to manage the lab work. You got to know what their issues are, and then go from there and picking the compound. Overall, I think growth comes from milligram to milligram. Are you going to grow more on 800 versus 400? Most likely, yes. And then there's going to be a diminishing return, but does it really matter if that 800 is 400 primo and 400 test or 400 EQ and 400 test? Probably not a ton, in my opinion, from what I've seen. But I also ask guys what they do best with and what has caused them problems. That's what I would ask you immediately. Maybe you say, "Yeah, Jay, when I take nandrolone, I get decadic and I feel terrible." Okay, great. We're not going to use that because it's nothing's necessary. So I'll stop there. And if you want to talk dosages or timing or how do I do some of these other things around it, GH, insulin, any of that, we can dive into.
Yeah, let's come back to me. For example, I'm 31 years old. Like I said, I'm healthy. Let's say that I can use whatever you like because everything just works fine with me. Let's just choose whatever you prefer the most,
Yep.
and I can afford as much GH as you like.
Okay.
I know
Great.
it's no problem with insulin,
Okay.
and let's keep it like out there. Do not incorporate peptides yet,
Okay.
because peptides is something that you are the first one who actually mentioned it. So I would like to ask about them, but separately, okay? Just to not mix them in yet, because there guys might think that they are more important than the period itself, and we both know that is not true. Most cases.
Okay. I will argue it makes them work better, so I don't need as much PEDS. You use Retta, use SS31, you don't need as much gear, which is important for longevity. But if I don't have Retta, I don't have SS31 in, I'm going to need to use more gear. So we're trying to
So,
gain
so let's
15
take, let's says make a example of
both. Both
both.
with
Yeah,
without.
yeah,
Yeah. So let's do
yeah.
without. Um, we got to gain 15 pounds. That's a pretty big
Hefty amount, yeah.
so I'm going to do 750 mig of test sip, usually spread 250, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you want to do it more often, you can. That's up to you. But generally, I would probably set it up that way. Um, I'm going to choose EQ as the next base for you, probably around 800. I'm going to tell you to watch your blood pressure. I'm going to tell you to probably donate every 3 months. And if we're having any of those issues, we need to back it down. GH, I love a higher dose of GH as long as we watch your blood sugars, which we've already said we're going to do. So I generally like up to 10 IUs. I find over some guys can handle, some guys can't. So as long as you've done a good amount of GH before, we might ramp up pretty quick. I might start at 5 the first week, and then get up to 10 pretty
Just
quick.
came off of 20 I use, and the 10 I
Oh,
use
wow.
is just my staple. This is something that I never lower it down, because for me 10 I use is like 2 I use for normal guy.
Okay. So you're at 20. So then I'm going to go probably 10. pre with our insulin and 10 post. So insulin, what's your history on that?
Love it.
Okay. So I'm going to start at 10 IUs for the start. I think we'll grow with that. If I have to ramp it up, we'll ramp it up. And then I'm going to do 10 IUs post. Okay. So we'll hit the GH and insulin both around the training. And this is where we're going to have the bolus of our food. We'll probably eat and then wait if you can wait maybe an hour, something like that, roughly maybe 40 minutes. If you can do it, if you only need 30, that'd probably be okay too. Generally, I have them eat and then take it and then get to the gym. I usually want them at the gym within at least an hour, 45 minutes, because the humalog will start to peak. And so I want that in the system as you start to train. And then you're going to have your intra drink, remember? So that's going to be covered as well. At least 60 carbs, maybe more, maybe 100, somewhere around there, depending. You'll tell me what you can handle. But it's got to fit into our macros. So, maybe we start at 60. Um, and then we got our GH in there. We got our Humalog in. We've got it timed where I want it. We've got our PED base. Oh, so on weak body parts, since you're a high level bodybuilder, I might use some orals, maybe Anadrol, 50 mgs. So let's say, I don't know, let's just say you want to bring your back up and we got you training twice a week. We're going to hit Anadrol, 50 mgs before the gym. Um, EQ, test, GH, insulin. And then you said hold off on the peptides. I might throw in just a little bit of trenbolone, like 150 mgs a week. Usually it seems to help guys kind of churn through food, but some guys it does the opposites. But some guys, it's sorry if they hear the dogs, I apologize. But some guys it helps feed, and some guys it hurts. So I'm going to see what it does for you, and then go from there. And then if we use the SS31 and the red up, I might pull this back a bit and start a little bit lower because I find what SS31 does is it lowers the reactive oxygen species within the cell. And what that does is the hormone receptors then are healthier. And so if the hormone receptors are healthier, you don't need quite as much gear on the body. Red, I usually use a milligram a week and start there. I know a lot of people are going higher. I don't find you need it in the off season, especially if it compromises your digestion or your ability to eat. What I'm trying to do there is keep you less watery, keep you shuttling food the best way possible, because Retta lowers glucagon, which allows insulin to properly
Yeah.
release with food. If we get to the point where we are not growing anymore, then I'll start bringing log in per meal. So you'll be hitting it with your meals as well. But I don't start there because I want to get some growth without pulling all of the triggers. If I need to, then I can also start putting orals between every training session, but usually I would go VAR probably. I just use the draw for like the weak body parts. I feel like it's pretty toxic on the liver, but it's amazing for the super physiological the pumps that we want to get that weak body part going. So that's generally how it would start. As we go along, if I need to bump anything, I'll bump it. If I need to pull anything back based on negative feedback, I'll pull it back. That'd be generally where I would start.
Okay, let's incorporate the peptides right now, okay? Because I am really curious about those SF31 use because I've never experimented with that, and the peptides are actually something that I am starting to utilize myself right now, especially the mitochondrial like a support stuff is something that interests me a lot. Not talking about that a lot because my knowledge is very thin when it comes to that, so I am not gonna making a fool of myself, but I
Sure.
would really love to hear your opinion about that.
Yep. So SS31 is one of my favorite. So what I like about that is, like I said, it lowers oxygen species within this cell. So that's basically any energy creating system. Let's take an engine. It has exhaust. That's the byproduct of creating energy. We have reactive oxygen species. That's the byproduct of taking oxygen and helping our food be burned or created into ATP. That is the byproduct. It's the what damages our cells and ages us. So
Yeah.
now we have cool peptides that literally can lower that inflammation, also called inflammaging. And when you do that, you're repairing these mitochondria, okay? And what's happening is there's hormone receptors on every cell. And so you have to have these hormones lock in to get the experience that you want from the PEDS. So the healthier these cells are and less inflamed, the better the hormones are heard. And so, you might have heard from people who I have at least, they'll take their TRT and they're pretty unhealthy people and they're like, well, my libido didn't go up, it didn't work for me. And I'm like, yes, because you cellularly are a shit show. And so it's the same thing here. And as we push up food, you're going to have more RAS. Well, now we have a peptide to keep that RAS lower. Plus, we're going to have RETA, which also keeps inflammation
Yeah.
lower. So now we have a body that's going to stay good with its insulin sensitivity, but also RAS is going to stay down. Now, if you really want to supercharge this, you can add SLOOP because SLOOP helps upregulate now a healthy mitochondria and even potentially rebuild and make them. So now you've got repair, and building, plus an upregulation of it to create energy faster. So SS31 plus Sloop are amazing. And then you got your Retta. And like I said, that's making that insulin time perfect because it keeps glucagon down. And remember, as you get stressed from training and PEDS, glucagon rises because it's telling the body to push out more sugar to run from the tiger, i.e., the stress. Well, if we got something that's keeping that glucagon down, our insulin is timing out perfect every time we eat. I'm making you an eating machine that's going to respond to your PEDS extremely well. So my point is, I think we could start probably 200 mgs, 300 mgs lower, and then build up. Will we get to where I started? Yes. But generally speaking, I think we can start lower with these modalities, which overall will keep you healthier in the long run. That's what I'm experiencing.
Can you explain how would you use it? Because I
Yeah.
saw a lot of protocols, and they are every of those protocols in some sort of way makes sense. But some
Mhm.
guys use those compounds like only on the like how to say it is the body parts that are weaker. Some use it only for I don't know, like morning before the cardio sessions,
Yeah.
because they are wanted to like utilize the PPR system or something like that with use of maybe GW and SR and stuff like that. So there are lots of different ways to use it, and it is especially because most of those peptides are used and utilized in the cutting phase. Not a lot of guys using it in the off season, but in my
They should
opinion,
be.
it's actually, yeah, makes more sense to use it when your actually systems are overload very, very much. So I
Exactly.
would really love to hear about your system of using it.
So SS31, anywhere from 2 mgs to 5 mgs, 5 days a week. You can take a two-day break. All the literature seems to kind of time it that way. Will you hurt yourself by staying on it 7 days? No, it just gets pricey. Um, Start at 2 mgs and see what you see. Okay. When would I take it? I think you can just take it morning and you're going to get the experience. If you want to time it pre-workout, go for it. But I don't see, whereas like NAD plus, you can feel some energy from that because of what it does to ATP output, or like Sloop. So those I would time before. So, but SS31, I just get up and I take it before my morning cardio with my microdose of Retta. How would I take Retta at 1 mg? I would start there. You can spread it over 7 days if you don't mind pinning. So it'd be like what, maybe 150 micrograms a day. Or you can just do a half a mg Monday and Thursday. Whatever you want to do on that. I take that in the morning as well before my morning walk. As far as the sloop, take a little bit before your morning fasted walk. Take the big bolus dose before you train. That is going to improve output, and work in synergistically with your SS31.
When it comes to the sleep, because this is something that interests me as well, I heard that the oral version is not actually working as well as good as the injectable one. Do you have an opinion about that?
I think that's just because anytime you take something orally, you're not getting as much of it as when you inject.
Oh,
So I
the
think
bioavailability. Yeah.
so. For instance, what I mean by that is, let's say you're someone who takes 500 mics in the morning, injectable, and 500 mics pre-workout. Now you switch to a pill. You're probably not going to feel it as much. But what you probably got to do now is if you want to get the same feel, you're going to have to probably double the dose on your oral.
Okay.
Most orals somewhere fall between 40 to 60% of absorption, really, of what's in the cap. And liposomal knocks that up to about 75%, and then injection, you get, you get it all. So yes, and that's why you're just going to take more. So if you're someone who just doesn't want another injection, totally understand, but you're probably going to have to double to get the same feel. Will you get something out of taking 500, 100% of capsules? Yes, you'll get some benefit. It's just you're not getting as much as if you took the same dose in an
Got
injection.
it. Got it. Okay, so how long you can stay on it? Because there's a mixed opinion about that, especially when it comes to the mitochondrial like upregulation. It might be dangerous staying for a year round, some says. So maybe you have an opinion about that.
So, sloop, I definitely think you want to rotate it or have off periods because you really are spinning the mitochondria fast. You are really pushing how the turnover. SS31, I don't believe you have to take a break. All it's doing is lowering inflammation. It's amazing for people like my father passed of dementia. And so if you look at the studies, it helps neuroinflammation. It also helps macular degeneration, which my grandfather had. So he went blind by about 85. It helps all these modalities. So I'm going to stay on SS31 long term. Sloop, because of what it's spinning, it's up regulating. I think you should take a break. You're going to sweat your ass off on it. You're going to be hotter. I just think that should be pulled back down. You don't want to be spinning that hard all the time. But SS31, I think you can take it year round. I will be doing that. Your NADs probably should rotate. Again, it's really pushing how ATP is used in the cell. So you're going to be spinning again harder. So maybe an NAD for 8 weeks and then a sloop for 8 weeks, something like that. But as far as SS31, it's going to benefit you whether you're cutting or you're growing, and it's just long-term health in terms of anti-aging. So for that one, I'm staying on long-term. Just like glutathione, I don't really see a reason why you need to come off that. I use that a lot with my athletes, especially if they're taking orals and things like that.
Yeah.
Um, another peptide I use a lot is IGF 1 LR3, but I only use a little bit on weak body part days, like 250 mics, so we can incorporate that. I don't like it daily and I don't like it in high doses. Obviously there could be cancer risks, but a small amount pre-weak body part with everything else we have in play is just going to create that super physiological roundness and pump that we're after to bring up any bad areas. I think there's a lot that can be done with peptides. I've seen it. I just put a guy on stage at the Tampa 212 today. He was a classic guy. He was 181 4 weeks ago. We used Retta, bumped his GH from 4 to 10. Used well-timed Anadrol, FAR, some IGFLR3, and we got him up to about 197 in better condition. And we did that in 4 weeks. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with these peptides when you have the PED base, right, in place because of what it does to support overall health and just make the machinery just crank. So.
And there are 248 new questions that's up in my head. So we have to probably get back to the off season because I am currently studying the topic. So for me, it's a delicious brain meal for now, but we have to get back to the topics. But if you find the time to talk about those compounds, especially when it comes to the supplementation use and stuff like that, because there we have like a PQQ, ubiquinol, and stuff like that that we can utilize as well. Like we can
Love
use
it.
M&M, we can use metal
Yep.
and blue, we can use a lot of MOTS-C, a lot of stuff actually. But I would really love to talk about that in a separate video because that might actually probably make a mess up in the brain of a lot of guys who are just wanted to know how to eat and pin. So, let's get back to the off season. You're talking about the GH, you're talking about the insulin, so I'm not going to ask you about that anymore. But how you to keep your estrogen with your guys? Because we know that they might have the potential benefits, might have potential risk of gaining about a lot of fat and stuff like that. So, what's your opinion about that?
So we know to grow optimally, you need estrogen. And you also know, or at least you should in the audience, they tell you to stay 25 to 45, at least on American numbers for estradiol. But when your testosterone rises up to 2000, that estrogen number can go up. So, a guy will do his labs in America and come back at 55, but his testosterone is 2000 and he's freaking out. I'm like, do you have gyno? No. Do you have ED problems? No. Or you have acne, oily skin? No. Okay, you're fine. So my point is, I don't just throw an anti-estrogen into a cycle. I wait to see what's going on. I think they should have them on hand. And if you already say, "Hey, Jay, I've been prone to gyno," then I'm probably going to put, some aromasin in at maybe 25 mgs 3 times a week with that cycle I just gave you. But if they don't have any, issue, I'm going to say just have it on hand because like even EQ will help a bit. And so something like Mast and Primo, at least for me, pushes it further down than any other compound. I can just feel it. And so some of that will be controlled. And so again, I don't have this, it must be this based on history. How have you reacted? No issues. Okay, great. Let's have it on hand, but let's just wait it out and see how you're doing. If they start to get itchy, puffy, any of that, let's put it in play.
Yeah, and estrogen control might be tricky because a lot of the laboratories are not using the sensitivity test, like an ultra sensitive test. So sometimes masteron might show up like an estrogen, trend definitely gonna show up like an estrogen, EQ might show up like an estrogen, primal sometimes might show up as an estrogen. So there's a lot of compounds who might interact with our labs. So
Correct.
if you don't know what's sort of like a test uses in your labs, you probably might not assess it right because, for example, I've tested my estrogen 2 days ago and it showed up 180, and believe me, I am probably below 15 or something like that right now. So yeah, it is definitely
Trent
incorrect
is highly
as
prone to that. I've seen guys at 40
yeah.
peeled out of their
I
mind, and we're just like, relax.
wasn't on trend then, but I know that I'm using to 12.5 exemestane every 2 days, and I use quite a bit of test and but a little bit of the masteron as well, and it's definitely I am not have any estrogen symptoms, so definitely not in that
Yeah,
higher
false
range.
positive
So
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So do you use AI, and if so, what are the choice of yours? You says you use it, but there are guys who believe that there are better or worse AI compounds.
It
So
depends what your goal is. So, like, if you're off season, I think aromasin's probably one of the better ones. It's a little bit easier on your cholesterol. But if you're getting ready for a show, I find Adex still works better. So I prefer to use that in terms of just drying someone out. We could use aromasin for the first half of the diet, but by the time you're 6 weeks out or getting near the show, I just find Adex, in my experience, dries out guys better. So that's the one I'm gonna switch to. I don't use letrozole much unless some guy got gyno, but I just doesn't it doesn't happen with me much.
yeah.
I asked the right questions and we set it up right. But if something like that happened and you start to get actual growth, you could use some letrozole. But otherwise, I don't use it. It crushes things so much. So it's really just 8X and aromasin really with me. And then, if a guy wants a little support, I've used I own a supplement line too. I use my Estricort. It's a DIM, Chrysin, a few other products in there that just stops the conversion and then puts out the right DIM is just a metabolizer. It just helps kind of move it out right down the right pathways. So I've even used that with guys who are just mild, just some over the counter stuff. So it just really depends on the guy, like a lot of stuff, and it depends on
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, assuming that those guys are using the exemestane correctly with the fat because there's fat soluble compound. So, do you find that it sometimes works selectively? For some guys are not lowering the estradiol that much, or for some doing it very, and it's actually a suicide inhibitor. So sometimes they kill the aromatase enzyme to the point that some guys are stopped producing aromatase at all. So, do you
Yeah.
find that it's really hard to for some guys to use it year round and they have to switch in some periods just to not let the aromatase enzymes actually disappear totally?
I haven't really seen that much, but again, I'm not using a ton of this stuff. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a big fan. I don't think most guys need it. I'm using it only if issues come around. And as soon as they get to off season, we're generally managing it with just maybe, 200 tests, 200 mass,
Yeah.
and they're fine. So I haven't seen any of that. But again, I'm just not a heavy user. Maybe there's some coaches who douse their guys with it and they got to worry about that. But it's just not something that's major in my program unless it's needed. So,
Okay. Okay. So managing the blood pressure. We talk about cardio briefly, and probably that's going to be with the hydration the most important factors. But what else do you like to use and incorporate when it comes to the blood pressure management? When it comes to not only supplements and meds, but maybe a lifestyle choice and decisions,
I mean, I'm a big fan of telmisartan. That usually works really well. And I mean, there's so many other benefits
benefits. Yeah.
to it. It can even help a little bit with fat loss. A guy that's going to be using a compound is going to drive up RBCs or even just a good amount of growth, like in our example. I'm probably going to layer that in right away. And we can start at 40 mgs, and if it's not getting the job done, you can rock it up to 80. But that's my biggest one that I'm going to use. I mean, I'm a big fan, of plenty of sodium in the diet. If someone's suffering from blood pressure, we can pull that back for now. But generally, it's obviously more so the compounds and all those things. So generally, I'm going to go with telmisartan is my biggest one.
Great. Great. Yeah, that's fair answer. So
Works well.
you
So.
yeah, definitely, definitely. I think this is the staple actually for most of the guys as well. Like stuff like berberine, for example, or in some cases metformin, because there are so many cross benefits with using of that stuff that it's actually if you are heavy enough, it is probably not wise to not utilize those
Yep.
things, to be honest. And even beta blockers, because you probably your heart is gonna grow even if you are not doing hits. So yeah, this is something that we supposed to be worrying about before something happens, not after something happens. So prevents, not healed probably is going to be the better way here. So the last question of today, probably because we are talking 1.5 hour right now. So you briefly mentioned a couple of supplements, but I would love to hear your supplement staples year round with all of your guys. Something that you are definitely going to put into the plan no matter what.
Yep. This is simple ones. I generally put in a multivitamin just because I don't feel like our food is just as good as it used to be. Creatine is generally always in there. There's more benefits than just extra ATP and reps. There's the neuro benefits, anti-cancerous. It helps detox. Um, I'm big on digestion. So usually a betaine hydrochloric, some sort of hydrochloric. If it's not ACV, then I'm actually going direct betaine. I usually have beta plus in, which is just a product of pancreatic and bile. You got to have good bile to move things through, and bile is product of the detox as well. And then, a lot of the health subs for me, I'll base it off their lab work. But a lot of guys are going to be on maybe some astragalus for sure. And like I said earlier, citrus bergamot. I usually put in, I don't always do a fish oil. I just will make sure they're getting some omega 3s via extra virgin olive oil, some of the whole food eggs. I do like urethrin A. It causes autophagy and mitophagy. So when I'm using it with peptides,
Can you repeat?
urethrin A.
I never heard about that.
Yeah, so look it up. I can put it in the chat. And so it basically pushes mitophagy. That causes mitochondria to overturn and be pushed out if they're senescent. And senescence
Okay.
is how we age, right? And so remember, when I'm using SS31, I'm helping the ones that we can save in lower raws.
Yeah.
Methylene A will push out the ones we can't, and then Sloop will help actually even build more and then upregulate the good ones. So you're getting a full mitochondrial health throughout. And cellular health is what makes us respond to the gear. I mean, if you got shitty cellular health, your response isn't going to be great, and you're going to need more and more gear, and then you're going to be out of the sport before you know it. So. I try to support the baseline systems so that they can do this for years. I mean, I still want to be bodybuilding at 60. So these are all important things that I do to help. CoQ10 is really important too. I like CoQ10. Those are some of the ones that come to mind. But again, I do a lot based on feedback. Is your digestion good? Is your sleep good? Maybe your sleep's not good. So I'm
Yeah.
using some L-theanine throughout the day to bring down cortisol. My supplement company has something called Cordy's. A lot of it's just based on feedback, but those were my baselines, I think, that I kind of rattled off.
Great. Okay, so I think we might cut here just to make it like more clear to the people. But if you find time for the part number two, I will be glad to do the
Yeah.
second part. And definitely, if you find the time to talk about the mitochondria upregulating and all the good shit that we have access nowadays.
Yep.
I would be more than happy because this is something
Do
that
it.
actually pick up my brain right now a lot. And with those compound you just or the supplement you just send me the name, I know what I'm gonna do tonight. So yeah.
If you could find one, David, with CoQ10 together, that's magic. That's perfect. Like that's a
Uh,
year-round good stack.
CoQ10 and PQQ probably is gonna be
Yeah,
great as
if
well.
you can find
Yeah.
three of those in one, then you got everything. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
so for sure, you're thinking right. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for today.
sure.
And for everyone that's want to find you, the every links, the codes for your companies and stuff like that, if you willing to let me put it down, we're gonna be
Yep.
down in the description below. And if anyone else gets through the whole podcast, please leave a comment, please leave a subscribe, hit the thumbs up and share if you can, because I am uploading it from the Poland and YouTube thinks that this is a Polish channel, so actually the video are not very promoted outside of Poland.
Sure.
But I have one time I have a situation that John Jewett actually watched my
Oh,
video,
nice.
and
Yeah.
in that video I was telling that I wanted to invite him. And actually, he didn't see the message, but he find my message and write me back. And that's why I have him like a 3 or 4 times already on the channel. So that was
Awesome.
something that's blow up
Hell
my
yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
That was
John's a
good.
good
That
guy. I've
was
spoken on a panel with him before. He's a good
yeah.
guy.
Yeah, it is. It is, and actually, all of the university he set up is great as well. So highly recommended. Okay, thank you for now, and I wish you great day because probably it's morning out there, so you have
It's
all
12:30
day.
now, so I got the rest of the day though. All right.
Have
Have
a
a good
great day.
All right. See you,
Bye.
man. Bye.